Hey everyone, Dave here, and in today's video, I thought it would be helpful to you if I showed you how to make this with just these 5 items. At least I hope you have these things in your kitchen. And if not, I will provide the links to cheap items you can get so that you can start making delicious homemade sourdough on a budget. Oh, and I'll show you some of my failed attempts at trying to shoot the footage for this video before I figured out which of the 5 items is the MVP and a must-have item for going from sourdough 0 to sourdough hero. All right, let's bake. Did I leave the oven light on? Okay, let's take a look at what we need. Stainless steel mixing bowl. Don't substitute this one, I'll explain later. Measuring cups. Measuring spoons. A razor blade. And a baking sheet. Now, optional, if you have it, or you're like me and you just want to use it, parchment paper. Now, if you have a weight scale like this, or a scoring lom, something like maybe one of these, or a Dutch oven, which I'm not going to show, that's even better. Okay, let's go over the recipe. We'll keep it simple this time, since the recipe, and frankly technique, is not the main focus of this video. I've included baker's math in the recipe for folks with a weight scale. For the rest of us, here we go. 3 cups of bread flour, 1.5 cups of water, 2 teaspoons of salt, and a 1/2 cup of starter. Now before we start mixing, please do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons. That really helps me out and lets me know that I should keep making more great content. Also, hit the bell button and you'll get notified when I post new videos. Alright, let's mix the dough. Measure and add to the bowl a 1/2 cup of starter and 1.5 cups of room temperature water. Use a spatula or your hands to mix the starter and water together. When that is done, add in 3 cups of bread flour and mix the dough together. When the dough is mixed, cover the bowl with a towel. If you don't have a towel, saran wrap will do, but the dough might stick to it. Leave the covered bowl on the counter for about an hour. It's been an hour and we need to add the salt. Measure 2 teaspoons of salt onto the dough and mix it in using the stretch and fold method. If you need some help with technique, please check out my other video, Country Sourdough. Once that is done, cover with the towel again for about 30 minutes. Now I'm also making my favorite loaf with my usual equipment today, mostly because I need some bread for the week, and I also wanted to show how comparable this loaf will be to my usual one, and you'll see some shots of me making that loaf too. Okay, the dough is now ready for the first stretch and fold session. Just grab each corner and fold it over to the center until you make your way around the dough. Then cover with the towel again for 30 minutes and repeat 3 more times for a total of 4 stretch and fold sessions. Stretching the dough helps make it stronger and more gassy so that it rises better when baking. Also, each time we do this, the dough is getting a big workout and needs those 30-minute breaks to get some rest and be ready for the next stretch and fold session. After the last session, cover the bowl again. It is time to proof the dough. For me, this part usually takes about an hour and a half on average. However, your results may vary, and it could be faster or take longer for your dough. What you're looking for at the end of the proofing period is about 25% growth, and you may see some gas bubbles forming on the surface at this point. When the dough looks like it is at that point, it will be ready, and we can start the pre-shaping. While the dough is proofing, let's talk about how we can up our game and get some better equipment to make sourdough with. Let's look at a few things you might want to get. A weight scale. Bakers use weight and math to get their recipes right and scale their bakes. Besides, how much is a pinch of this and a dash of that anyway? Next up, we have dough and bench scrapers. Getting a dough on a bench scraper really helps with mixing the dough, cutting and shaping the dough on the counter, and it also helps keep the dough off your hands when it's being sticky on any given day. Dutch ovens or combo cookers like this one. You just heat them up in the oven, put the dough inside, and wait for the magic to happen. Next up, we have bannetons. You can get that artisan dough shape by using one of these instead of a bowl. Now, if you have one, use a shower cap. If you don't, or you just don't want to, get cover mates. They come in a bag that looks something like this. And they do this. They have a rubber band on them, and you do this with them with the Bannaton. Boom, easy proofing. You can go to your plastic bag aisle at your local store and get a pack of Covermates, which are for things just like this. Now, last but certainly not least, any scoring lom. It's much better than a sharp knife, which is never sharp enough, and it's safer than holding the razor blade directly in your hand. Any scoring lom will make scoring your dough way, way easier. Getting all of these things, or even some of them, will make it easier to get some great results when you're baking. But keep watching. I'll tell you about a few more items that are total game changers for those who really want to make artisan sourdough or go pro. All right, the dough is ready to start shaping. Sprinkle some flour on your work surface and on top of the dough. Don't go overboard. We just want enough flour to help the dough not be too sticky. Now pull the dough out of the bowl and onto the lightly floured surface. Cup your hands around the dough and roll it into a ball. Hopefully the dough isn't sticking to your hands or surface and is pulling up off the work surface just a little bit to help it get into a smooth round shape. This step takes some practice. Don't give up. I had sticky dough and tore the dough a lot before I got the hang of it. Once the dough is in a smooth round shape, leave it on the counter and cover it with a towel for another 20 or 30 minutes. The dough needs to rest a little bit before we really shape it. Hopefully your dough held its round shape well enough and didn't completely sag on you. That happened to me a lot early on before I got the hang of things. If that does happen, don't worry about it, just keep going. Pull the dough off the work surface and use some flour if you need to, but not too much. Stretch the dough out into a square shape about twice the size of the round shape it was before and put it back on the work surface. Now grab the corners, stretch them out to the point just before they tear, and fold them back into the center. If you still have some corners, do the same for them too. Once the dough is sort of round again, pinch any center seams closed and flip the dough over. Then cup the dough with your hands, and like before, roll the dough back into a round shape with no open seams. Okay, this is where having that mixing bowl comes in handy. Line the bowl with the towel, and then put the dough inside the towel with the seam side of the dough facing up. If you see any open seams in the dough, just pinch or stitch them closed again. Next, lightly wrap the towel over the dough. If you're going to bake later in the day, just leave the bowl out for a few hours to finish proofing. Start performing the poke test after a couple hours to check and see when it's ready for baking. Get a baking sheet and the mixing bowl. This is why the stainless steel mixing bowl is the MVP. Not only can we mix dough and other stuff in the stainless bowl, we can use it to proof the dough for baking, and stainless steel is oven safe and we can use it as a dome during baking to trap the steam that helps the bread rise. Put the bowl on top of the baking sheet and put them both in the oven. Then preheat the oven to 500 degrees for about 30 minutes. When the oven is ready, if you have some parchment paper, go ahead and tear off a sheet of that and get the dough out of the fridge. Unwrap the dough and put the flat side of the dough on the parchment paper so the round side is facing up. If you don't have parchment paper, that's okay too. But you'll need to work faster in that case, as you'll need to pull the baking sheet out of the oven and put the dough directly onto it, score it, and cover it in a big hurry. Okay, carefully grab that razor blade and score the dough as an X. Just angle the blade so that one of the corners can cut into the dough about 1 centimeter deep, but pull the blade quickly from one end to the other for both parts of the X cut that you're trying to make. Once the dough is scored, unless you had to put the dough directly on the baking sheet, get the baking sheet and the bowl out of the oven, put the dough on the baking sheet, and cover with the bowl, then put them both back in the oven and bake at 450 degrees for about 20 minutes. Then after 20 minutes, take the mixing bowl off the dough and continue baking for another 25 minutes at 425 degrees or until golden brown. Let it cool for at least 30 minutes before slicing and eating. While the loaf is baking, let's talk about the equipment every aspiring artisan baker should have. Proofing box. The counter works just fine for many things at room temperature, but if you want to control the heat and moisture in your environment a little better, get a proofing box. Rod & Taylor make a great one. A Challenger bread pan. Okay, if you can't afford or don't want to get a baker's oven, get this instead. This is the absolute game changer for home bakers using home ovens. And in my opinion, it's way better than both a Dutch oven and a combo cooker, and I'm doing a video on this Challenger bread pan very soon because I love it so much. Another one is a Rofco oven. If you can afford and or want a professional level baker's oven for your home or budding new bakery, get a Rofco baker's oven. They're a bit pricey, but you'll be making artisan breads out of these ovens in no time and at scale depending on which one you get. Last but certainly not least, my two favorite bread lamps, the UFO lamp or the Bread Smart lamp. Love these. These are my absolute favorites. I use either one of them all the time when I bake. And I'm running a video series soon that's going to show all the lamps I've tested, because there's more than just these two. And I also wanted to show how they did, which ones turned out best, and I'll give you a little hint, it's both of these. There's always some other piece of equipment that is a must-have, but getting these items will seriously up your game to master level. Alright, the bread is ready. Let's cut a few slices and see how we did. Check it out. My loaf turned out awesome. And that was just using these 5 essential items most of us have lying around the house. Now compare that to my standard home loaf. Again, the key item that makes this possible is that stainless steel mixing bowl. The fact that it's oven safe is what makes the item so valuable for achieving great results. And if you don't have one, don't worry, they're cheap. I posted links for all the equipment down below in the description for you, just in case. Now I've done this a bunch of times, and my skill level has improved quite a bit since I started. But I did have a bunch of very tasty failures along the way. So if your loaf didn't quite work out this time, just keep at it. Practice will make perfect. And try to upgrade your equipment as you go. It helps make things easier. One last thing before we go, check out some of the pics for my failures just trying to make this video without all my normal stuff. Some were so bad I couldn't even save them. That's it for this time, and don't forget to like and subscribe right now. It really helps. Better yet, comment below and please share my video if you liked it and thought it might help someone you know. Thanks for watching and take care.